Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Emrah. I'm a backend developer here in Monstarlab Prague office. So I'm going to tell you about open source in next 15 to 20 minutes. And I would like to start with one question. Why do you start an open source project? So let's say you are using an application, maybe an extension in your browser on your computer, which logs you in websites that you have previously registered. So what it does, keeps the credentials, like password, username or email, and fills the form for you. But you don't want this anymore. You want this application to do something else. For instance, you want this application to register you to websites that you haven't registered before by filling the form. Maybe creating a username for you or generating a random password, and maybe coming with even like a biography for you, fill the description field. So what you can do, you can simply start researching on the internet. Simply you can Google it to find out whether there is an existing application or whether there is something that you can maybe buy. Or you can actually take another approach. You can still keep researching, but on all those social platforms that we use as developers, such as Stack Overflow, Reddit, on YouTube, for instance, watching all those tutorials. And at the end, you may create a repository on GitHub, for instance, where you are starting and sharing your source code, your project source code, which allows other developers, other people who are interested, to become a contributor. So they start to contribute your project. And in time, one thing may lead to another. You may have really advanced project. Not only everybody uses, but some companies even wants to contribute. They may come to you and say, you know what, we like this. We like to actually not only contribute it, but we are going to fund you on this project. And after a while, you may just stop doing that, and you may move on, and you may move on to something else. You may start doing another project. So I am assuming now you may have like a brief idea regarding why you may actually consider starting an open source project. But I think the real question is here, we need to answer, what is an open source software? Or what is not? So I will take you back in time a little bit. Richard Stallman, maybe some of you are familiar who he is. And if I'm not mistaken, while he was working in MIT, he had a problem with a printer because he couldn't fix one issue. Not because he was incapable of, but he was just blocked. Software-wise, he couldn't just fix the problem. So maybe this was not the reason or even the spark, but we can consider this was one of the reasons that he later on started the GNU project to create a free Unix-like operation system. So he and his team was actually writing all the components, but also they got also some components from other resources, other people as well. But one main component was missing, which was the kernel that Linus Torvalds released, made actually publicly available, and then they add this component. And after that, they had GNU Linux software, which was the free operation system that you can use. But when I say free, I am not referring that actually free of charge. When it comes to free software, we are talking about 4 essential freedoms actually. What are those? Well, of course, you can run the program as you wish and any purposes. You can see the source code, you can change the source code, you can distribute the source code, but not only that, you can actually help people to do this as well. But this tells actually about what free software means, but I am going to just summarize it with one sentence. Users control the software, not the other way around. But what does this mean? When you are having actually a free software, you are sure that there is nothing inside the code is malicious. But when you are using an application, well, I am not referring that it is the thing, but it may. So the ideology and the philosophy actually behind the free software, the avoiding and preventing this as much as, not as much as possible, but 100%. But then, what is open source software? So, well, if you look at the official definition and the open source initiative, they say defines open source software as software. Well, I'm not going to keep reading it, but this is the official definition. It's actually a little bit long. But it actually tells the everything. But I am going to also a little bit summarize this by just saying open source software doesn't just mean access to source code. Now we are actually changing our philosophy here. Because when it comes to open source software, we are also talking about the distribution. And this distribution must comply with certain criteria that we are seeing in the list over here. So I am not going to cover all of these, but I assume if you just take a moment and look at this, you will have actually the idea, and some of them are actually quite self-explanatory. Free redistribution, source code, and no discrimination. So if I actually summarize all of these and just wanted to tell you simply what is open source software, we all, I guess, are on same page in terms of like a redistribution and also accessing the source code. Two more important aspects of open source software that you don't need to wait from a third-party company to reach you out and tell you that, you know what, there was a fix, we have fixed it, this is it. No, you don't need to wait for them. You are able to see the source code and you can do any fix by yourself. Or you can team up with other developers or people who are interested in. So that's where the higher degree of cooperation comes in. So I assume we have now maybe better understanding about what open source software means and what free software means. And what about if you want to start with an open source project? How you can actually start with? Well, I am not going to here talk about like you are going to, GitHub and open a repository here, it should be public. Those things, yes, as steps you will do, but I consider some little bit like the muscle work. Still also valuable knowledge, but you will, I think, I like to assume that you have that part understanding and it's actually kind of easy to get. But what I would like to bring your attention at here that some other aspects, sometimes people are missing it. Because when you look at the internet, you see all those open source projects, some of them are really good, and I will give you one example later on. But some of them just horrible, because they are just missing some important aspect. For instance, adding code of conduct to project. What I mean by that, it's not only actually a README file, but that could be one start. Because in that README file, you may, of course, tell about the technical aspects, like what was the idea behind this project? Why you decided to write the code rather than buying something, for instance, or what was your motivation? In addition to that, you can tell the developers how they can contribute. How do, for example, maybe there are endpoints. This is like a web-based project, and you can explain what endpoint does, like which endpoint does what. So you can explain them. And the most important thing, I think, you can maybe mention some important aspects, such as, let's say, this application, this open source project, open source software, using let's say there's a feature. It blocks requests from some certain IP addresses. Okay, but instead of saying white listed, you may choose, for instance, another terminology. You may say disallowed or allowed listed IP addresses. So you may actually use another, like a language over there. Technically speaking and ethically speaking, I think it will follow all the guidelines, all the criteria that we were actually previously talking about. And second things, well, it's also, I guess, quite self-explanatory. We are talking about an open source project. Where are all others contributors? How they are going to reach you? So I am not here actually promoting Discord, but this is one of the platforms where you can have a channel and where you can allow other people who are interested in become a contributors. So they can see ongoing conversation, they can actually ask you questions and you can reply them, so you can get in touch with them and people can share actually source code. Sometimes other developers even tell you that, hey, I can do these things that seems not possible to do, but it works. And you can even surprise it, oh my God, I didn't know my actual code can do that. So that could be some funny and interesting moments. And last things, be accessible. What I mean by that? Well, you can start the project. You might be the only person there, but it will be better to be there for a certain period of time so project can keep alive. Because if you lose your interest then who is going to take over from you? So it will be better to be there, reach out people, ask them questions, and let them to ask questions to you and answer them. So literally, you are team up with the people. And in time, well, maybe, as I said before, you may even leave the project because it can get so bigger, some company even take over. So I assume I have actually answered all those questions with some valuable information. And there is one more actually something I consider like a bonus that I would like to show you. So we were talking about open source project, open source. So is there any like a successful project? Well, it is. And actually the one we are using constantly called Vapor, which is a Swift-based framework. So it all started in 2016. And right after framework, okay, maybe not right after, but after some time, it started to become a popular, and we also interested in this framework. So we actually used every single version, and not only that, I am actually part of the Vapor team in the company, and our team lead, head of department, is also core member of the Vapor team as well. So we are making contribution to the framework and open source project. So, but why this framework? Well, I would like to briefly actually talk about why we are choosing it and use it on production. Because safety, it is type safe. And one of the aspects that we really love, that when you are writing the code, it fails during the development. So you see that your code is not gonna work because it types it. It actually helps you and shows you what mistakes is there. The performance-wise, it's compiled. Swift is a compiled language, and because of that, it's just so fast. Beautiful APIs. Well, protocol-oriented language and approach we are talking about here. So that's why writing the code and the code structure also, it looks kind of nice. And you like to see the code, it's readable, and it also kind of encourage you and do more. So the last part I would like to cover is about the licenses. So these are the most popular, widely used ones. And I'm not going to go through all, but I will talk about the MIT license a little bit more because I actually used it. I'm a foreigner and living abroad, working as a developer. But before I got the job, for instance, I applied the job, I got the job, I got recruited. So I can work remotely, but legally, that's a problem. If I work, company needs to pay for me. So how we can handle that? All of my code by that time were under MIT license. And MIT license is okay, the company to use my code on commercial purposes as well. So everything was good, and actually I felt kind of nice because I used something there which exists. That was actually, I feel like I made a contribution by myself too, by using an existing license. So I think we have 1 minute and 30 seconds to go. I was trying to fit everything in 15 minutes. Hope you understand me. I was actually practicing the conversation in the morning, and I was starting saying good morning. Then I realized that this cannot be happen now. So good morning will not work though. And thank you all, especially Tiago's friends and everyone else. And if you like to have any questions, please you can ask now or maybe later. Thank you.